The NHL will not take part in the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics. The news is just
in
breaking.
April 2017, the NHL would drop a bombshell as they would announce that the NHL would not be participating in the Olympics. But it's okay. World Junior time, baby.
It's a goal, loose puck, everybody scores! Tabo loose in front, they score! Campbell tackle!
What makes the World Juniors so fascinating is the fact that each year, every team has a brand new roster, which is also why the World Juniors are so unpredictable, which leads to some of the most exciting moments in hockey history. As every year, the tournament is injected with new players, different playing styles, and star power. Think about the Olympics. Every tournament you expect Crosby and Ovi to headline their respected teams. Scratch that. McDavid one year, Lafreniere another year, Tim Stützle coming out of nowhere, proving that German development programs are no joke. And if you weren't aware, the World Juniors is an under 20 tournament. Meaning, well, exactly that. You have to be under 20 years old. But that's the tricky part. If you compare a 25-year-old NHL player with another 29-year-old NHL player, now, obviously every player is different, but you're not going to routinely see that dramatic skill gap. However, when it comes to the World Juniors, the difference between a 16-year-old and 20-year-old can be night and day. So, when we do see an underager make a roster, it's a big deal. And if that player can make an actual impact, it's a huge deal. In the spring of 2012, the CHL would announce the next potential generational talent from Canada, as Connor McDavid at the age of 14 would be granted exceptional status, meaning he was so far ahead of his age class, he would be allowed to advance to the next level prematurely. News that would pique the interest of all hockey fans. But not until the U18s would McDavid really prove that he was in fact the real deal.
He sets up Puljujarvi, wraps it around, and Connor McDavid has got the power play. Here's Reinhardt into the middle for McDavid, scores! He joins McDavid and Stasiuk. Here's McDavid, wrap around, scores!
McDavid as a triple underager would set the tournament on fire, as he would put up an incredible 14 points in 7 games, single-handedly leading Canada to a gold medal finish, while at the same time cementing himself a roster spot in the next U20 World Junior Tournament. And so he did, because at the age of 16, McDavid would make the roster. And he didn't just play fourth line minutes. McDavid, playing against players who were up to 4 years older than himself, was still that major impact player, as he put up 4 points in 7 games. But Canada did have a disappointing 4th place finish. But hold up, that is why the role of an underager is so important. Because the next tournament, with World Junior experience and an extra year of development, McDavid would tear up the tournament and lead Canada to a gold medal finish, where today McDavid is the best player in the world. And there was definitely a direct correlation between him making the roster as an underager and being that special talent. Because at the age of 23, McDavid already has 5 pieces of major hardware and has already established himself as one of the best to ever play the game. In my most recent video, we talked a lot about child prodigies from untraditional hockey markets. On a side note, I really appreciate all the positive feedback on that series, because prospect development is easily my favorite component of hockey. But in that list of child prodigies, add Oliver Bjorkstrand to the list. As it currently stands, there are 7 players in the NHL from Denmark. Only a couple of decades ago, Denmark was nowhere to be found. And it is very evident that their hockey programs have been growing, as they've been producing highly skilled Danes like Nikolai Ehlers and Lars Eller. So, in 2012, when Denmark got promoted to compete in the World Juniors, a young and primed Oliver Bjorkstrand now had his chance to show his elite offensive toolset on the world stage. And I do want to emphasize, especially with the blowouts we've been seeing this tournament, it can be extremely difficult for a developing hockey country to compete with the big dogs. So if they have an underager who can make an actual impact, that player may be really special. Because at the age of 16, keep in mind, playing on the worst team in the tournament, Bjorkstrand would turn many heads, as he would put up 2 goals in 6 games, on top of being able to showcase his elite puck skills to the world. And his impact, although it wasn't overwhelming, was enough to secure a spot in the WHL, where he'd uproot his life in Denmark and play the next season in Portland. And after a very impressive year, Bjorkstrand would be drafted in the first round, a major accomplishment for Danish hockey. And a couple years down the line, guess what? Denmark, led by Bjorkstrand, would get a win. It may not seem a lot to Canada or America or Russia, but it's big for a country like Denmark. On top of Bjorkstrand producing at a point per game. And today, Oliver is a back-to-back 20-goal scorer for Columbus. And he's a very skilled player with a very bright future ahead of him. Magnus Paajarvi, a name that has been slowly forgotten. But once considered a top prospect in the world, today he is nowhere to be found. Coming up in the Swedish system, Paajarvi was a highly skilled winger, who became one of the youngest players in Swedish World Junior history to make the team. And like Team Canada and some of the other powerhouses, making the team as a 16-year-old was big news. And on a team led by other players like Victor Hedman, Mikael Backlund, and Patrick Berglund, Paajarvi and Team Sweden would miraculously find themselves in the gold medal game. Except Team Sweden would unfortunately run into a Canadian super team, made up of probably 5 or 6 future Hall of Famers. But still, Paajarvi at age 16 proved he could compete against some of the best prospects in the world, and would even come home with a silver medal. And with this momentum and experience, Paajarvi would go on to light up the next tournament the next year with 7 points, and 10 points the next year alongside of an additional bronze and silver medal. He would then get drafted 10th overall by the Edmonton Oilers, and come into the league with an impressive 15-goal rookie campaign. But in typical early 2010s Oilers fashion, Paajarvi would drastically regress. Now, the Oilers would kind of compensate and somehow land David Perron in a trade. But don't worry guys, Edmonton would still mess it up by trading David Perron to Pittsburgh for a first-round draft pick. The same draft pick they traded to the Islanders that ended up being Matt Barzal, but that's a different story. But Paajarvi with the Blues would bounce around the organization, and today, Mangus is playing well in the KHL. And sadly is another byproduct of Edmonton's inability to develop prospects in the early 2010s.
I only shoot and score. Then if you score, then we'll come.
The win. What are you seeing from this team that's allowing it to kind of break through some of these things?
Before Puljujarvi blessed us with his hilarious personality, Puljujarvi was a phenom coming up in the Finnish system. Because as a 16-year-old, playing in Liga, one of the best leagues in the world, he would put up 11 points in 21 games, playing against ex-NHL players and people who have played hockey longer than he's been alive. And this dramatic rise, combined with the fact that Jesse scored at a point per game in the U18s, he would force his way onto the Finnish World Junior roster. Now, I will say it was pretty anticlimactic, as he would put up 0 points in 5 games, but what this did do is lead to one of the most dominant performances we've seen in tournament history. Because the next year, alongside of Sebastian Aho and Patrick Laine, the Finns would dominate so badly, it wasn't even funny. Because as a returning player, Puljujarvi would put up an astounding 17 points in 7 games, as the Finns would win gold in a dominating fashion. And alongside of the World Juniors in a very impressive Liga season, Puljujarvi would be drafted 4th overall by the Edmonton Oilers. But sadly, Edmonton would do Edmonton things and force Puljujarvi into the roster at age 18, where he'd be unable to adjust to the North American game. And I'm still a big fan of Puljujarvi, and I still very much believe that he should have spent at least 1 extra season in Liga before coming to North America. But sadly, after going from a World Junior hero, to put it simply, Jesse would be a big letdown. 8 points in his first 28 games, he'd get sent up and down from the AHL. The next season we'd see some progression with 12 goals, but after a 9-point campaign, Jesse would decide to pack his bags and go back to Finland. But hold up.
Tomi Kallion ja Ari Vallinin kommentit. Puljujärvi laukoo! Ja sinne helähtää! Puljujärvi lähes 10 kertaa.
Jesse would once again get back on track. Back in Finland with a better system around him and the ability to clean up and polish his game, Jesse would become a top player in the entire league last season. And this year, he is coming back to the NHL with vengeance. So, make your predictions now. Comment down below. I want to see it. How well will Jesse Puljujarvi perform this time around? But anyways, guys, what is the most dominant performance you've seen from an underager? Or perhaps someone who was just draft eligible? And make sure to press subscribe for some more awesome hockey content. The year's wrapping up, so I'll see you guys in the new year. I hope you guys had a great holiday. Thanks for watching. See you guys later.